Hey soccer fans, this is Nick reminding you to check out Sports Spider. If you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as updated as possible on the Chicago Fire or any other team, hit the link in the description to check out SportsSpider.com. Hey soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I'm your host Nick, and today we are recapping the Chicago Fire's draw against New York City FC. We're looking ahead to their midweek matchup against FC Cincinnati, and we're going to cover a few of the headlines from around the American soccer and world soccer landscape and, share a few stories along the way and hopefully some laughs. And I definitely got a couple of anecdotes from my attendance at the NYCFC match. Before we get into all of that, I want to just quickly address a housekeeping matter. I want to say thank you to Leo, one of the fans out there who I'm walking around the concourse at Soldier Field at the match. I get a little tap on the shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, I really like your podcast." So, Leo, thank you for stopping me, saying hello, giving me some words of encouragement. As always, it was great to talk to you. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the match. And for anyone else out there who wants to get in touch with me, please feel free to say hi if you see me out at a game. If you don't know my face, come find me on YouTube at Glasshouse Soccer, or please reach out with a couple emails, direct messages. I'm on social media at Glasshouse Soccer, and by email, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. Now, speaking of those messages, I want to read a little bit from some emails that I got. One from our good friend Ryan here. He titles it "A Stalemate of Mediocrity." Well, that was technically a game, Ryan says of the New York City match. Good defense on both sides, although neither offense seemed dangerous today. Why does your boy Omsberg keep picking up silly yellow cards? Minus that he played well. Yeah, that was silly. He is playing some silly, but I think that is kind of true across a lot of the back line. I noticed it some after Ezra left, but mostly after CJ Brown was sent up to the front office, that back line has absolutely no discipline. They're not being coached very well, and it doesn't look like they're being held accountable for their lack of discipline on the field. And they're so thin in the back as well right now due to the injuries. But Ryan concludes his brief email by saying this was the 6th game where the Fire haven't scored a goal and the 3rd Fire game where it ended 0-0, just in case you weren't aware. I was not aware because I really didn't want to have to look up those numbers. Also, we got an email from friend of the show, Israel, who was great running into you at the game. It has been a while with a lot of the matches being played away from Chicago lately. But there are a couple things that Israel wrote that I wanted to point out to everyone here. He says that he's really mad that overrated Schulte will go to the Olympics instead of Brady. Same scenario with Kramashi. Guti should have gone instead. Popularity contest as usual, since Chicago players do not get good looks. This is what happens when Chicago teams are always losing. The rest of the country sees us as chopped liver, unfortunately. Great comments. I got nothing to add. You're absolutely right. Until the Fire start winning games and being taken seriously and competing with some of the top teams in the league, no one's going to care. No one's going to get the looks. Again, Chris Brady is probably one of the best shot-stopping keepers in the league right now, but the fact is his defense keeps letting these shots come in from such close range that his numbers look really, really bad. And if you're scouting a group of players as wide as American goalkeepers, you got to start somewhere. And I'm sure a lot of these scouts just kind of filter out certain stats and just say, oh, well, his save percentage is terrible. His goals allowed is terrible. Well, yeah, it's because of the defense. Anyway, also, what Israel says in his email is, I had extremely high hopes for Koutsias and Miller. I was expecting Koutsias would end up with at least 6 goals and Mueller with at least 8 goals. And yeah, those two guys have been really disappointing. Mueller, especially since coming back from his surgery, does not have that breakaway speed that he used to have and just is off just a little bit. He is a guy, I think, who needs to have 3, 4, 5 shots, looks on goal to be effective, to get that one in. He has those little curlers from the corner of the box in him that he loves so much. But when you see him trying to take on defenders one-on-one and losing the ball early, he is not getting the ball from his teammates. And also, when he gets in front of the goal and tries to, one-time it and ends up skying it, he's not going to be getting many more passes from his teammates. Also, Koutsias had a pretty good season last year, considering it was his first year in MLS. He was only 19 years old. He had that great game against Montreal that I was hoping would kind of be the blueprint for him for the next 3 years. But the fact is that the coaching staff are content with playing Kuipers and Selassie as like dual strikers now, and that they were more than happy to play Tom Barlow ahead of Koutsias for most of this season, or bringing in other wingers to bolster their offense early on in the season when you had Guti and Shaqiri as your kind of main midfield guys there. So Koutsias isn't getting the same looks as he was last season, and you know what, if you're going to play Barlow, and I'm starting to hear this from a lot of other fans, if you're going to play Barlow, you might as well play Pareba, one of the CF2 guys who was up on some short-term 4-day deals. And remember, you only get 4 4-day contracts before you actually have to take up a roster spot on the senior team. So he's only got another week and a half or so with the senior team. Hopefully he can get some minutes in the next match or two upcoming. And yeah, that next match or two, Cincinnati and Miami. I doubt he's going to get minutes, not because he doesn't deserve them or because they shouldn't give him the minutes, but because I don't think the coaching staff is going to. They still think that they can put out their same starting 11 guys and get results here, and we know that's not the case. Israel, you sent me a great email, a very long email, and he actually compares Tom Barlow to Kasper Shabilko, which is hilarious, both guys who just can't score with the Fire. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get to respond to all your points, man, but I appreciate you and Ryan emailing in every week and giving me a little bit of fodder to kind of stoke the flames here as we get into our main coverage, this matchup against New York City FC. Now, what was the most fun about this match was country night. It was a great time. I don't like country music, but it was a blast. They had a country band playing, and the old man in me is like, this music is too loud. I'm waiting in line for my kids to ride the bucking bull ride here, and the concert's playing too loud, and these kids' ears are. But it was a lot of fun. The kids got to play the games outside, inside. They did get on the bull. Whoever was running that bull ride were two of the most nicest and most patient guys, considering my little guys could barely get up and on the bull themselves. And it was just a lot of fun. And I'll say, these cowboy hats, if you're listening, go find me on YouTube right now. I got my little Chicago Fire red cowboy hat on. These cowboy hats might have been the hottest giveaway of the year. I had at least 3 or 4 people come up to me and just say, can I buy those off of you? Can I have one? Can my kid have your hat? And I'm like, no, like they're for my children also. Like, I'm not selling my kids giveaways. Plus, I like having them. Like, I'm eventually going to start a little wall of Chicago Fire memorabilia behind me. Maybe when this Believe ad revenue picks up and I can buy some nice shelves or something to put behind me in my little basement office here. But yeah, I like having this stuff. It's fun. And, my daughter's not a huge sports fan, but when she heard it was country night and she'd get to rock her red cowboy hat, she was all about it. She didn't take it off for most of the match. But yeah, the bull ride was fun. I'm an old man when it comes to old noises and things, but I will tell you, the noise in the stadium when they had those couple of opportunities was great. They announced over 25,000 people at the stadium. I think the Fire had the 3rd highest announced attendance in MLS this weekend. Great Saturday night in Chicago. It was beautiful. The rain didn't hit until later. And Joe, thanks for tweeting at me saying, hey, I walked home in the rain because I stayed late at the stadium, and it felt very fitting to walk home from that game in the rain. You're not right. That was the sentiment there in this 0-0 draw when the team looked lethargic, lacking in urgency, no offensive creativity. Hang on, did I say those exact 3 things last week when we were talking about the 1-0 loss at San Jose? I did. I didn't even have to update my show notes. Like, you just copy and paste a lot of this stuff from week to week here because of how the team came out. It looked like both of these teams were playing for a point on the road, even though the Fire were the home team and supposedly put out a good lineup here. I don't know why they weren't going for it as much as they should have been, or even with those late subs. You saw Koutsias come in and try to have some energy, and it looked like they just give him the green light to go wherever, go find the game, go get on the ball, go make something happen. Because even though he's coming in and technically has a position as a forward player or as a striker or subbing in for someone who has an assigned position, he's all over the pitch. And if they're going to use him that way, that's great. But they've got to start actually thinking about how to use that in a useful sense, in a productive sense. Not just go see if you can make something happen, because that pretty much is how the Fire won their 2 games, the one against Montreal and the one against Philly. Like, just let's see what can happen. Go nuts, throw the ball forward, maybe something will happen. This isn't a bad hockey team here. Just put the puck on net and you'll find something. If if you want to take advantage of Koutsias' kind of chaos or free range, you need to learn how to use it. You need to get him to either pressure a particular defender or a particular area of the field you need to control and dominate. You can't just let him run it all over the place, because then his teammates don't know what to expect, and he's just expending energy as well. So he needs to pick and choose when he is going high press or when other players are pressing, right? Instead of just throwing numbers forward, pick and choose who you want to press, what scenarios you want to press in, and then how, when you turn the ball over, how are you going to counterattack? Because we saw late, there were a lot of guys who were walking in those counterattacks, in those transition moments, and it did not lead to anything. Credit to New York. They were getting numbers back late to preserve that point on the road, that 0-0 draw, but man, there was not any sort of urgency or usefulness to how they were using their subs. And the other little bit of criticism I'll give, why is Chris Brady falling on the ball at home when there's stoppage time? Are you that afraid you're going to lose the game late? Then that's a problem of mentality and culture, and coaching staff and front office staff need to be held accountable as much as the players. When your own keeper is wasting time to preserve a point at home in stoppage time, that tells you have no faith in your defense, and maybe you shouldn't, but that also tells you that you are scared and that you are just playing and going through the motions. In fact, maybe that's what I'll title this episode, Going Through the Motions, because that's exactly what the Fire did in this game. Now let's take a look at their lineup. They played a 3-5-2, which we've been seeing them play lately. Brady in net, Chihos, Olmsberg, and Suke in the back line, Aragoni, Acosta, Gaston Jimenez, again in the captain's armband for whatever reason, in the center, and Gutierrez and Mueller out right, Kuipers and Haile Selassie as your dual strikers, and then you saw Jonathan Dean, Mauricio Pineda, Tom Barlow, Yorgos Koutsias being brought in as subs there. The statistics of this match, about even possession. According to MLSsoccer.com, Chicago had 50.1% possession. Oh look, they improved from their San Jose game. Instead of 10 shots with 1 on goal, they had 11 shots with 2 on goal. Not good. Not good at all. The defense blocked 3 shots. They only had 378 total passes compared to NYC's 372. Passing accuracy, 82% to NYC's 80.4%. So a very, very even game. And when it's a boring game and both teams are playing even, you know the home team and a team that should be the aggressor in the Fire definitely played below what expectations should have been. Corners, 6 corners, 7 total crosses, 1 offside, 18 aerial duels, 1 to New York's 24. So they were getting out-dueled in the air. Oddly enough, their XG was 1.4. So 2 shots on goal, 11 shots total, and a 1.4 XG. So a little bit of a higher XG than we've seen in recent form, but still not nearly good enough offense. Brady is credited with 1 save. The defense had 2 clearances, 13 fouls, and 4 yellow cards. Let's see if there's any other statistics to go over here. The one statistical thing I wanted to point out, this is on the New York side of things. When we did the preview in the last episode, I looked at New York's touches and passes in which zone of the field, the defensive third, middle third, or attacking third. And New York City had the majority of their touches and passes in the middle and attacking third. And they have a possession-based system which allows them to maintain pressure in their opponent's defensive third. So even if they do turn the ball over, they have a lot of their team there ready to counter press and win the ball back and regain that possession. But in this game, they actually had an average height of defensive action less than that of the Chicago Fire, and and that line was about in their defensive third, maybe approaching that border of the defensive third to the middle third of the field. So New York City played very, very conservatively, very defensive-minded. Maybe they're afraid of Kuipers and Haile Selassie on the counterattack. I don't know. Maybe they're buying into some of the hype that Gaston Jimenez is this great midfielder, regista passer who's going to find them. We haven't seen that. And by the way, I got into a discussion with someone on Twitter about Gaston Jimenez and how they're like, he's so talented, don't get down on Jimenez. All these teams in South America are rating him. I'm like, clearly not at the value the Fire are. because they would have transferred him already. And the fact that he's talented has no bearing on how well he actually plays. We saw it with Shaqiri, we're seeing it with Jimenez, and we're seeing it with other players on the Fire as well, who, yeah, everyone at this level is talented, but you got to play like it, and you have to do it consistently, and that has not been the calling card of the Chicago Fire in a very, very long time. All right, moving down my outline here, what else did I want to tell you about this match? I think that's about it. I think we need to move on to the second half of the show. And as always, as we transition into the second half, we take our water break here, which is sponsored by Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Icelandic for clear, Skira water comes from a spring in a government-protected nature preserve in Iceland with naturally low mineral content. This isn't your average water. Clearly, pun intended, it's one of the best, and Skira is available at your local 7-Eleven. Now, let's look at some headlines from around the Fire and get into their next match against FC Cincinnati. Now, this July 17th Wednesday match against Cincinnati, we'll see Miles Robinson out due to red card suspension, and then he'll be off playing in the Olympics. He's one of the 3 overage players on the Olympic roster. It's a U23 roster, but you're allowed 3 overage. It's him, Walker Zimmerman, and Jordi Mihailovic, which I do find interesting because you've got Robinson and Zimmerman as I wanted to say they're starters, but they didn't feature at all in Copa America, and Jordi Mihailovic has been on the outside looking in throughout Berhalter's tenure. So, like, I don't know what the plan was to have these guys be your overage guys. If you're trying to see, are they going to be leaders? Are they going to evaluate? Are they going to help people try to develop, or do they actually want them because these are positions of need for this under 23 roster? I'm not sure. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me as far as grooming the next generation of senior team players or going out and trying to win the Olympics, get a gold in the Olympics or medal in the Olympics. If you want to do that, a lot of people, and I tend to agree, say put Brandon Vasquez on there. Get this big old striker who's got a point to prove, especially when the USMNT hasn't been able to score goals and he hasn't been on the roster. Like, that would be a great move, unless it's just, admitting you're wrong when you add him on the Olympic roster and he goes and lights up the tournament. Again, assuming he does. But anyway, back to the point at hand here. Miles Robinson will not be playing in this matchup against Cincinnati, and we'll see if the league releases the availability report sometime on Tuesday. As I record this, it is Monday the 15th. But even without Robinson, even with the midweek matchup, I still don't see the Fire winning this game. They have proven to be in a terrible run of form now. Those great games back when they had a 4-game point streak seemed like last season. And I don't see them winning against FC Cincinnati in Cincinnati. The prior result this season, when they played Cincinnati at home here in Chicago, it was a 2-1 loss. Miles Robinson got the late second half winner in that one. Also, Cincinnati is coming off of a poor 3-1 home loss to Charlotte. Now, that's not a knock on Charlotte, but if you're trying to win the Shield, if you're trying to win the number 1 spot throughout the playoffs, you don't lose to Charlotte. And I think Cincinnati will be looking for a bounce-back performance, and the poor Chicago Fire are going to be their whipping boys. On top of that, take a look at what Columbus did, whooping LAFC 5-1. If you think this is anything you can do, I can do better, or kind of a keeping up with the Joneses kind of a thing, these two soccer neighbors here, they are going to look to come out and stomp on the Chicago Fire, and I am not excited for what is going to happen there. Now, Cincinnati comes in as the number 1 team in MLS. They are on 48 points. They are 1 point ahead of Inter Miami by virtue of 15 wins, 5 losses, and 3 draws. Crazy thing about Cincinnati, their home record, 6 wins, 4 losses, 2 draws. Their away record, 9 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. They have an amazing plus 14 goal differential here, which is 3rd in the Eastern Conference and 5th overall in the league. Columbus has an outstanding plus 26 goal differential. I don't know how anyone's going to catch them as far as goals scored. But you've got them sitting in the top of the Eastern Conference wanting to hold on to the Supporter Shield and that #1 playoff spot. They don't want to have to go to Columbus. They don't want to have to go to Miami, and they don't want to have to go to RSL or LAFC come postseason here. Recent run of form has been good for them. They are coming off that 3-1 loss to Charlotte, but prior to that, 6-1 victory over Miami, a 3-2 victory at DC, and a 1-0 victory at Dallas. So they are, I would say that Charlotte loss is the outlier there, and they're going to come in playing well. For that Charlotte game, they lined up in a 3-4-2-1. We know Celentano is in goal. You've got Ian Murphy along the back line. Miles Robinson was their center back. Again, he won't be in this upcoming match. And Alvis Paul was out right. In your midfield, they had a defensive line of Yamil Assad, Pavel Buka, Yaya Kubo, and DeAndre Yedlin. Your attacking midfielders, Lucho Acosta and Luca Orellano, and their striker up front, Kevin Kelsey. So you might see Kip Keller getting the start for Miles Robinson. You might see Valenzuela get a start as well. They're at home. I don't think they're going to try to drop back and play, a 4 or 5 defensive backline. I think they're going to stay in this 3-4-2-1 and be very, very attack-minded. Again, you have Sergio Santos, you have Corey Baird on the bench as well to come in and give an offensive boost. You've got Brett Halsey also on the bench for them who can come in and provide some solid play. And you've got Aaron Bupenza, who we saw have a great game against Chicago the last time he was in Chicago. So that is their lineup there. You want to talk about players to watch? We all know it's the MVP candidate, Lucho Acosta. He's got 11 goals on the season, 17 assists, 82 key passes. I don't know of another player in the league who is anywhere near him in key passes, at least off the top of my head. I don't even think Messi's there just because he's missed so much time, whether for injury, rest, or international duty. His expected goals on the season is 9.7, so he's a little ahead of his expected goals, and he gets into attacking positions. He's got 17 offside on the season, so he is doing everything for this FC Cincinnati team. Your next highest goal scorer, Yaya Kubo with 9. You've got Kevin Kelsey and Luca Orellano with 5 goals apiece, Pavel Buka on 4, and then a number of other players with 2 and 1 goals. You want to talk about assists? Again, you've got Lucho Acosta as their assist leader with 17. Orellano has 6, Assad and Buka with 5, and then several other players with 3, 2, or 1 assist. So there is a lot of team play, and it's going to be very, very difficult for the Chicago Fire to put up with this kind of firepower in an opposition. I don't see the Fire getting a win here. I see Cincinnati, especially being at home, just piling it on. This could be 4-1, 4-0 in favor of the home team. I am not excited to have to sit down and watch Chicago take their licks here. Then again, I said NYC and Chicago would play to a 2-2 draw, but it ended up a 0-0 draw. So there's that. All right. That's my prediction. I think it's going to be a whooping. I think Cincy puts up 4 on Chicago, and we are all left just scratching our heads and saying, hey, maybe Shaqiri can come in and do something now that he's retiring from international duty. That's the other headline that was out there. After the Euros were completed, Xherdan Shaqiri announced he is retiring from international soccer. He's hanging up the boots for the Swiss national team after probably the best career a Swiss international has ever had. I think they said he has scored in 3 different World Cups and 3 different Euros for Switzerland. He's played in 4 World Cups and I think 4 Euros as well. He has done everything that Switzerland has asked him to do at an international level. So now that's in the books and in the review. Hey, maybe he starts listening to some of the criticism of why can't you do that for Chicago, and maybe helps turn it around a little bit. Anyway, nothing I've seen so far suggests that, but one man can dream, right? The other dream was that while he was over there in Europe, he would get a transfer, and there were rumors that were coming out that Panathinaikos, a team in Greece who's usually top 4 in the Greek league there, along with Olympiakos, AEK, and another random team or two, whoever kind of move up. That's why I'm wearing my Panathinaikos t-shirt here. Shout out to my brother-in-law Chris. I know that's your team. And when I sent him the rumors that Shaqiri was going over there, the only thing he responded back was, "Wow." But yeah, apparently they couldn't get the deal done. They were going to try to work something out where the Fire wouldn't have to eat a ton of his salary, and that the team was paying him a similar salary, and maybe if the Fire were going to eat something, then they would pay it off in a bonus, that Panathinaikos would offset it as a bonus, or whatever the case was, but didn't get it done, and Klopas was quoted as saying he expects Shaqiri to be back with the Fire sometime this week. So we have that to look forward to, Fire fans. The other bit of Major League Soccer news that just came out a couple hours before I'm recording this is that Chicho Arango received a 4-match suspension. And it's a very odd suspension because it's a mix of competitions here. Here's the announcement from MLSsoccer.com. MLS has suspended RSL forward Christian Chicho Arango 4 matches for violating the MLS anti-harassment policy. So I don't know if he was harassing fans. I have to go find and figure this out a little bit more, or who he was harassing here. Arango will miss RSL's next 2 regular season games. He'll miss the All-Star game and their first League's Cup match. So what a wild suspension. Not only does he get 4 games, which seems to be pretty harsh considering I think this is probably his first offense, his first off-the-field issue, if you will. But then he loses out on the All-Star game and loses out on League's Cup. That's a huge blow. I can't believe that MLS is doing this to one of their top players and their top teams. I'm glad they're suspending players who deserve it, but the fact that he's missing out on exhibition matches and a manufactured tournament, that is interesting to me. As a fan, I'm going to miss watching him play, but that is a very interesting way they decided to dole out his suspension. The announcement ends through match day 26. He leads the Golden Boot race with 17 goals, 11 assists in 23 matches. And I'm trying to pull up the official club statement here. The official club statement. Arango's been suspended for 3 RSL matches and the All-Star game for violation of the MLS anti-harassment policy. The club has fully cooperated with MLS's investigation and accepts the disciplinary decision. That's it. There's their official announcement. So, odd times going on in MLS. As far as looking around some of the world soccer news, obviously it's the Euros and Copa America that have grabbed all the headlines. Spain defeats England 2-1 to win the Euros. Argentina defeats Colombia 1-0 in added extra time to win Copa America. And that I got to stay up. It was great having one of my cousins from Michigan in and came over to the house late and logged in with his Fox Sports account. We got to watch the match. So Anthony, glad you were here and glad you shared your password for the night with me. So it was a lot of fun watching the game with you. But an otherwise decent match that had some great moments of brilliance and some great soccer that was otherwise marred by everything that went on before the match, with the mobs rushing past security, destroying barricades, people practically getting crushed, people passing out from the heat, getting stuck in the mob. Just mob rule. There's also video on social media of fans who did not have tickets climbing in air ducts, like getting into the mechanical works to try to get into the stadium. I saw there were only about 75 arrests, including the head of the Colombian Federation, who wasn't arrested like trying to rush into the stadium. Of course, he was there. He probably had tickets or some credentials, but he tried to get onto the field after the game, and security's like, no, you're not going on the field. And he tried to push his way past security, and he and his son ended up getting arrested. So a lot of craziness going on down there, but we got to watch the game eventually. For someone at home sitting on my couch, I got to watch a decent game, but I can't imagine what it was like to have been there, or for you to have been turned away in instances, or have to make the decision not to go and use your tickets because of how unsafe it was. So that difficult all around. But as far as the MLS and a little bit of the Chicago Fire impact, we saw how Messi ended up with a couple of ankle injuries. His one ankle had just swollen up to the size of a softball, man. And I'm not talking about your fast pitch college softball. I'm talking about Chicago 16-inch mushball softball there, clincher softball, where that doesn't even fit in mitts. You just got to use your hands with it. Like, that was a real nasty swollen ankle, and hopefully he can get back into form and get ready for the Chicago match. just because I want to see him play, or I want to try and resell my tickets. I'll be honest. But hey, if he's not there, and I end up going to the match, at least we got the Jason Derulo concert to look forward to, right, Fire fans? That's good consolation. Can't sell your tickets and make some money back. You can't see Messi play, but hey, Jason Derulo, right? That's going to offset it. Anyway, let's hope that's not the case. And with that, we have expended all of our time this week. I thank you for tuning in and listening to me each and every episode. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, whether it's Good Pods, iTunes, whether you give me 5 stars on Spotify or go on to the Believe Network and find me. I really appreciate everyone who has reached out to me. Let me know what you think of the show, who shared the show, and who is helping me grow this one listen at a time. We'll be back again later in the week recapping the Cincinnati matchup and looking ahead to the Fire's next matches. But as always, Fire fans, let's go Fire!